Hello and welcome to Board Game Bonkers. I'm Jay Sears, and today we're going to be talking about 10 board game accessories. Now, we will do another series on unusual board game accessories, but we'll talk about 10 standard board game accessories. And there'll be a couple of hidden gems in here, which I would highly recommend. But before we get on to the list, please do consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already done so. Yes, you know who you are, the ones who watch the videos and don't subscribe. And please like our videos as well. It helps others discover these. And please consider getting involved as well. Let us know if we've missed any of the list. Perhaps there's some accessories that you can recommend others to check out. Now, with that out of the way, let's dive straight into the list. So starting off with our number one, that is board game backpacks. Now, we actually talked about this in our board game storage solutions video. I'll put the link in the description down below so you can check that out. I don't want to go into too much detail on this, but essentially a board game storage bag allows you to store your board games in. Perhaps you're traveling to conventions or going to board game nights. Perhaps you're traveling somewhere on holiday. It's a great way to keep your games protected and tightly snug into a bag. Now, of course, you can buy a standard backpack, but these are specifically for storing board games. The prices range anywhere between 60 to all the way up to £150, depending on the size of the bag and how fancy and how many compartments you want in it. But it's certainly worth considering investing, particularly if you're moving games around a lot. It's certainly worth checking out. So let's move on to our number two, and that is a dice tower or dice tray. Now, dice towers, you can get them all different types and sizes and different weirdness as well. And the dice towers are great for chucking your dice in and then rolling them without you having to make much of an effort. But some people prefer to roll the dice and chuck it around the table. Well, consider getting a dice tray. There are different types of dice trays. You can get wooden ones, you can get rubber ones and leather ones. Now, I prefer the kind of rubber or leather ones rather than the wooden one because it does weigh quite a bit. But some people prefer chucking dice around, putting in a dice tower. But dice towers do have a bit of table presence. So you can consider getting a dice tower. But if you want a table presence and still like chucking dice, well, you can get different types of dice trays that look really cool indeed. So just pick your one that you prefer, but certainly it will help with your dice rolling rather than just rolling it on a standard table that's knocking pieces down and hitting your table. The dice will wear away as well eventually over time if it's on a hard table. So do consider investing in a dice tower or a dice tray. So let's move on to our number three, and that is life counters. Now, I really like this because a lot of deck building games, perhaps there's a kind of head-to-head, one versus one, and you haven't got a way of marking your health, perhaps. The game didn't come with anything. Well, a health life counter will help with that. And I much prefer these because you've got a dial that you can kind of just clock round, and it looks a lot nicer than just sometimes using what is these card health markers. For example, it'll be a card and a card, and you'll be slotting it up or slotting it down as you lose health, and then you'll take the card down. Maybe it's from 30 then down to 20, and I don't like those. I much prefer these life counters, and the good thing is you can just buy them once and then they can work in any game. So worth considering investing in that, and they're relatively affordable. Like I say, you just make one purchase and then you've got that life counter. Now I do use an app. I've got an app that's actually came out for another game, and the app is so good that it's got health on one side, health on the other. You just put it in the middle and players can track their health. Although for some reason I like the feel of these health counters better. So let's move on to our number four, and that is card sleeves. Now, we did talk about this on our 10 ways to protect your board games video. And again, we'll put the link in the description down below so you can check that out. But card sleeves are great to protect your cards, and it stops them getting nipped at the ends, particularly those with the black border outlines, and it keeps those manky paws off them as well. But of course, not everyone likes using card sleeves because some people like that style, that feel, especially nylon cards, or the feel of the cards, and that's perfectly fine. But card sleeves will protect your cards, particularly with deck building games when you're constantly shuffling and touching the cards. So let's move on to our number five, and that fits in nicely to what we're discussing, and that is card stands. You get different types of card stands. You can get single card stands. You can get multi-use card stands. Card stands are great for a variety of reasons. One, well, they help protect your cards slightly because you're not constantly touching them. Two, Perhaps you've got games that you've got lots of cards in your hand, and that's quite difficult for players with small hands or younger players to handle. So card stands are great for that. And card stands are also great for organising your cards. It makes it a little bit easier. We use card stands, they are handy, particularly with games with lots of cards in them. But it's not for everyone. Some people have big hands and love holding their cards in their hand instead. But it's worth checking out and considering investing in card stands. So now let's move on to our next one. That's number 6, and that is token trays. Token trays are great for putting all your tokens and pieces in, and especially great as well because you can move them around as the game progresses. Perhaps you've got a large sprawling board and perhaps it's difficult to kind of place your tokens in one place. It's much easier to pick that token tray up, move it to the other player. They can't reach tokens that are piled up in one particular area of the table. So they're handy for that, and they're also handy as well. Perhaps you've got some token trays that can be dished out to each player for their own pieces. Now I use these, they're nice and compact, and as you can see, we can actually give players their own little pack and they can put their own pieces in. So these are great. I prefer these over the other ones because they're compact and they fit my shelf nice and easily and they don't take up too much space on the table either. But token trays are fantastic. They're really good for putting all your pieces in, and it just makes it much smoother in gameplay. So you can, you're not having to lean over to the table to grab that piece. Somebody can just hand that token tray over to you and you can take the token. So I definitely highly recommend investing in some. Let's move on to number 7, and that's metal coins. This to me feels more of an essential upgrade because everyone will tell you the feel of plastic or just standard token coins isn't the same as metal coins. Now, you don't have to buy metal coins for all your games, you just buy one set and then you can use those coins in most of your games, and it just gives it takes the game to another level. It gives it another extra feel and that sense of thematicness if you've got metal coins. And I much prefer using metal coins than plastic or just cardboard chips. It just feels better and it just gives it an aesthetic upgrade. So I highly recommend investing in coins if you can get them. They're relatively cheap, £15 to £20, and it's definitely worth an investment. You only buy them once and they will last. Let's move on to number 8, and that's thematic dice. Now, there's some games that have just got basic standard dice, and perhaps you're looking for more thematic dice. Perhaps you've got an alien game and you want some green dice with a little bit of different patterns, colours in them. Perhaps you want something that's just completely different and a little bit outrageous. Well, you can get all different types of dice. You can get so many different types of thematic dice that look cool and amazing. The important thing is you can read the numbers on them, but it does elevate the game. It takes it to another level of you using thematic dice. And they can get different varying types of prices as well. You can get some that only cost a few pounds, some that cost in excess of £15 to £20. You can get metal dice, which looks cool. But of course, you don't want to be rolling that on a hard table. You want to be using, like we discussed earlier, a dice tray or something, or a dice tower. But do consider looking at some thematic dice and see whether that can elevate your game. It's not a necessary upgrade, I don't think. But for you RPG lovers, perhaps you're looking for some really cool thematic dice, then shop around, see what's available. It really does elevate that gaming experience. So now let's move on to number 9, that's player mats. I'm talking specifically about player mats. For example, Tiny Epics do a player mat, and it just helps organize your cards. Perhaps you've got a card game where you've got a planning phase area, a battle arena area, perhaps there's a discard area, a draw pile area, and another area for this, and another area for that. It just makes it much easier to visualize where things go than just having a blank canvas. So player mats can certainly help and elevate and help that game flow a lot better. Now, they can be pricey, some of them, but I think thematically, especially if they've got a good background and colour to them and good artwork, it really does bring that theme into play as well than just using a plain table. So certainly consider player mats and consider the one question, will it enhance your gaming experience? Because if it doesn't enhance it, then consider what's the point in wasting the money on that. So some games want it, some games don't, so it's worth considering. So let's now move on to our final one, number 10, and that's token capsule. Token capsules are great for a couple of reasons. Protecting your tokens from getting damaged, chipped, worn away. But secondly, if you've got perhaps a drawback, and it'll help to minimize the luckness or the predictability of that drawback. So what I mean by that is setting that tokens you can distinguish of the different shapes, for example. So hide that distinguished shape, because if you're drawing from a bag, you might be able to feel exactly what type of token that is. So eliminate that, particularly if it's meant to be random. So that will help with it, but ultimately it will protect your tokens as well. So there's two functions to that. So I hope I've explained that clearly. And that brings us to the end. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you found this valuable in looking at these different accessories. We will cover unusual accessories, so do consider subscribing to the channel to check that video out when we release it, and we will be considering looking at some other alternative top 10s and top 7s, etc. like this. If you find these videos useful, please let us know in the comments down below if you'd like to see more in the future. Until next time, you've been watching the Board Game Bonkers. Take care. My name's Jay Sears.